I'm sorry to interrupt the honourable member. His time has expired. I call Michael Woodhouse.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The National Party will be supporting this bill at its first reading and to Select Committee, and it does so for two reasons. Firstly, the support of this bill to Select Committee is part of the National Party's confidence and supply agreement with the Maori Party, and I think this reflects very well the sorts of cooperative relationships that can not only be agreed but honoured in good coalition government. I contrast that with some of the agreements not met in the latter stages of the Labour government, including that with the United Future Party. I think had the Honourable Peter Dunn been here, he would be nodding sagely at the recollection of an agreement made with him in successive parliaments with the Labour Party over issues in respect of support for medical insurance, which was not only not honoured by that government, but by the time David Cunliffe became the Minister of Health, he was not even aware of it. So I'm very pleased to say that within 4 months of the agreement being reached, that this bill can have its first reading and be referred to the Commerce Select Committee, where it will get, I think, a very fair hearing. And indeed, I'm quite confident that we'll get plenty of submissions on the issue. The second reason the National Party will be supporting this bill at its first reading is because we share the very grave concerns that the Maori Party has, and the member introducing the bill, Tūroa Flavel, has on the effects that problem gambling has on society, and the goal that this bill has of harm minimisation, and I applaud those efforts. It's a continuation of the very active work that the Maori Party has been doing in respect of harm minimisation for its people, and as the member mentioned, I think the very best example of that over the last 3 years has been the excellent efforts by the Associate Minister of Health, the Honourable Tariana Turia, to increase the excise on tobacco and to further denormalise tobacco in our lives, and the statistics, particularly around young Maori, are extremely encouraging, and I do hope that regardless of the future of this bill, and that with the support of the Maori Party, the government can continue to reduce harm and the problems that gambling can have on our society. Mr Speaker, I want to focus on a couple of issues in respect of the bill, and in particular the focus that it has on racing, and in particular racing stake money. And the member, Mr Flavel, quite rightly points out that there is some pokey money that does go to support the racing industry. I think he used the word special consideration for that industry, and I'm not quite sure I would concur that the racing industry necessarily has special consideration. I've certainly received plenty of submissions in advance of the first reading of this bill from people who are involved in the industry in one way or another. And I know that the Minister of Racing, the Honourable Nathan Guy, has some concerns about what this bill could do to the racing industry, and the estimated $6 to $8 million a year that is provided for stakes, but also for infrastructure development in courses right up and down the country. And I think I would make two comments about that, Mr Speaker. Firstly, the popular perception of the racing industry is something that is extremely glamorous. The Ellersleys, the Addingtons, the Wellington Cup Day at Trentham, where we get our glad rags on, our hats and our fascinators, and out we go. And that it is a very, the perception of the racing industry is that it is an elitist sport, the sport of kings, as they call it. But I think the reality is something different. And from a very young age, my annual summer holidays in central Otago were always punctuated by a trip to usually the trots at the Omakau races, about 40 kilometres east of Alexandra. A fantastic day out, which I continued with my own children, not only there, but also at the Cromwell races. And I can tell you that there isn't a fascinator to be seen anywhere on that race course. It is a terrific community day, and one where I guess the racing is almost incidental to the social connection that is so very important to those communities. They have, over the last 20 years or so, gone through something of a significant slump in terms of their support by numbers and the amount of financial support that's provided to them. And it's by no means at that grassroots level an industry that meets the reality, doesn't meet the perception of the Ellersleys and the Trenthams. And the second thing I would say about that is, up until about 20 years ago, indeed, racing was probably the only sport one could bet on, and that the TAB was there solely, those smoky high street agencies were there for the sole purpose of betting on horses. And of course we know, Mr. Speaker, that that's quite different from the current day reality, where there are a number of sports, a plethora of sports that one could bet on: rugby, rugby league, tennis, cricket, and so on. And so if one separates the betting aspect of racing from the community and sporting aspect of racing, one could argue, and indeed many have, that the race day is a sport like going to the Forsyth Bar Stadium in Dunedin or the Westpac Stadium here in Wellington, and that one could also bet on the outcome of the event. And I think that is analogous, much more analogous these days than it is in times past. So I would question the description of the so-called special consideration of the racing industry. And I'm quite sure that because the racing industry is such a large employer in this country, some 50,000 people earn part or full-time income from the racing industry in many parts of the country, that we will hear many submissions from those involved, and other sporting codes for that matter. And so I'm sure the government will look forward to the submissions and the deliberation by the committee on those issues. But I do want to emphasise that this is a very important issue. Some aspects of the bill, I think, are probably already able to be done, but I think that's going to be for the Commerce Committee's examination of the bill in terms of what existing provisions already exist for local communities to have more say over where those proceeds are spent and which organisations can benefit from them, and also the number of machines that are in local communities. I think, and I'm not an expert on this, but I do think there are some provisions which already enable that. While we are by no means anywhere near looking at the outcome of, say, Sky City, the Prime Minister did mention in answer to an oral question yesterday that notwithstanding that, the number of pokie machines in Auckland has reduced, I think he said, from about 5,100 to 4,200, a nearly 20% reduction. So it's already going down. It's going down under the existing provisions that exist. That said, I think there are many very worthy elements to this bill. I look forward to following the submissions and deliberation process with interest, and I'm very pleased to say that the National Party will support this bill at first reading.
The Honourable Ruth Dyson.
Mr. Speaker, can I